Today, unfortunately, we don't have a projector. But I was given a beautiful, inspiring video. It's 3 minutes by my dear friend, Attorney Antonio Tony Oposa. And the message is very clear. To have peace on earth, we must have peace with the earth. And so this is in line with an Asian peaceful marine environment. It's going to be shown in the video, as a live video, but unfortunately, we are unable to show it today in this hall right now. But our viewers and listeners will be able to access the video when they watch this kapihan here in Kamuning Bakery as a whole after the event. I think peace is an important element. Peace is a necessary ingredient for progress, for prosperity, and for a future that we can depend on. A future where opportunities will be made available to all, and a future where our children and grandchildren are going to be definitely protected, and for them to enjoy the fruits of our effort towards the establishment of peace. And we want peace based on justice. Hindi po katahimikan sa sementeryo hinahanap natin. Ang hinahanap natin ay katahimikan kung saan may katarungan, may pag-unawa, may paggalang sa isa't isa. Yun po ang hinahanap natin na kapayapaan para sa sarili nating kaunlaran at para sa sarili na susunod sa atin. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Senator Lily Cosateng. Thank you, Rod. And thank you, Wilson, for the opportunity. And all our friends from the media, bloggers, columnists, reporters, thank you very much for coming. The title of this forum is Peaceful Settlement of Disputes with China. So I would like to ask the question, can the Philippines and China peacefully settle territorial disputes in the South China Sea, or specifically the area that we call West Philippine Sea? To answer this question, I need to cite the work of my good friend, also a fellow friend of Dr. Lugo, M. Taylor Fravel. He is an American political scientist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. In his study, which is actually based on his doctoral dissertation, Fravel underscores that China has been involved in at least 23 difficult territorial disputes since 1949. Imagine, 23 territorial disputes. But at present, only 6 of these territorial disputes persist. These are the Taiwan issue, the border dispute with India, the border conflict with Bhutan, and the 3 island group dispute in the Paracels, Pratis, and Escarpado Shoal. Fravel discovered, based on his dissertation, that China, of the past 60 years, was merely likely to compromise in this conflict with neighbors and less likely to use force than many Western scholars have feared. According to him, China's territorial dispute with neighbors have been effectively resolved. These include peaceful settlement of territorial dispute with North Korea, Russia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Myanmar, and Laos, as well as land border conflicts with Vietnam, including the White Dragon Tail Island dispute in the Gulf of Tonkin. China has also settled territorial disputes over Hong Kong with Great Britain and Macau with Portugal, not through the use of coercion, aggression, or military force, but by patiently negotiating for the return of these Chinese territories. Do you know that China waited 156 years to get back Hong Kong from Great Britain, and 442 years to regain Macau from Portugal? In other words, China has a proud book of patience to peacefully settle territorial disputes. China has taught the world that in the peaceful settlement of territorial disputes, patience is the main requirement. Fravel observed that China's resolution of the other disputes involve difficult compromise agreements in which China received only a minuscule part of the contested territory in major cases. China offered generous compromises, giving in more than 50% of the disputed land in favor of the neighbors. These are scientific findings from an American and not from a Chinese scholar. By citing an American source that is well respected and accepted by the international community of experts and scientists, it is therefore very unfair to be labeled as pro-China if we want to talk with China. Okay? In the Philippines, it is currently popular to be anti-China because of the West Philippine Sea issue. But as Albert Einstein said, what is popular is not always right. It is counterproductive to use labels like anti-China or pro-US in the context of the South China Sea dispute. It is more Filipino to believe that sustaining friendship and strengthening peaceful coexistence with the US, China, are essential for the advancement of Filipino national interest. It is not a matter of being pro-US or pro-China, but if you're a Filipino, it's a matter of being pro-Filipino, and it is in the best interest of the Filipino people to peacefully settle territorial disputes with China and other parties in the South China Sea. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Ronald. Maganda yung ganyan sinabi ha. Maybe you can give them the reference.
Yeah, I'll give everybody.
Para mag-uwi nyo, pwede yung check yung study ng Amerikano. Okay, let's now start. Who wants to begin? Professor Hugo.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's our pleasure to come here. You know, you may think that South China Sea is very much closer to the atmosphere here. So it's my pleasure to be here to make the dialogue and communication about the South China Sea issue. And the senator and my friend Dr. Romeo has mentioned that we should peaceful resolve the disputes of the South China Sea. I'm not as ambitious as them. I think we can peacefully manage the disputes. I think in the foreseeable future. You know, the maritime disputes because which relates to sovereignty and maritime delimitation is very difficult to resolve. I think in the near term, it is not just the phenomenon, the reality of the Southeast Asia. It is also the reality of the world. We want to say a lot of maritime disputes in the world, which are very difficult to resolve, especially South China Sea disputes related to at least five parties. So I think sometimes I say that in our lifetime we will not see the resolve of the disputes. No party can persuade and convince other party to give up its own maritime claims. So I think I'm confident that we can peacefully manage these disputes. We know that our China-Philippines relationship have some difficulties because of South China Sea issues. But even that, in the last year, China and the Philippines have used the diplomatic channels to calm down the situation of Scarborough Shoal and of the South China Shoal and the Sabina Shoal. So you will say even the situation is a little tense, but the diplomacy makes sense. Another point I want to emphasize that I think the situation of the South China Sea has been evaluated too much. You know, if you just focus on one thing, you will be very sensitive about that. South China Sea is very important for China and the Philippines, but definitely South China Sea is not the whole of the Philippines, even as well of the Philippines as well as China. And my final point is about the South China Sea policy, China-South China policy. I think the outside world and including the Philippines has some misunderstanding and misconception on the China's policy. China claims. I think China claims is very consistent since the founding of People's Republic of China. And China's policy also keeps consistent and stable. Even now, I think China's policy follows the doctrine of Deng Xiaoping of the sharing the disputes. during the dispute. Only changes, I think, are China's capabilities and China's resolve to safeguard its maritime rights and maritime sovereignty. That's all the changes. So the China policy and China claims have been consistent and very stable. So for now, many foreign friends ask me that what's your next step? What's your intention in South China Sea? My answer is very quick and very simple and very consistent that up now China has no plan. We have no plan in the South China Sea. Our plan is just keeping the status quo and respond the changes from other claimants. If other claimants want to keep the status quo, I think China is very good at to manage the situation jointly. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be back with you again. Well, I think today for me, there are two basic, very important issues. First thing is in the short term, how can we prevent and manage the crisis between China and the U.S., China and the Philippines, in the South China Sea? And the second thing is that in the long run, what is our ultimate goal in the South China Sea? But the first thing in the short term, how can we prevent crisis and manage the crisis? I think the first thing, very important thing, is the principle of self-restraint. Well, it is all of the flag states and also China and ASEAN believe that when we signed the 2002 Declaration on Common Parties, well, Article 5 says that nobody can occupy new uninhibited features. I think this is a commitment for all the signing parties, including China and the Philippines. So for us, for China, I think that the Philippines better not to try to change the status quo, both in the second shore, Gulf shore, or in the Indian shore, Indian Reef. And also, the second thing is that we already have our bilateral communication mechanisms, the BCM. We also have hotlines between Coast Guards and also the defense ministries. So I think that better not to postpone or stop any of this communication mechanisms and channels. And the third thing is multilaterally, we have to still see negotiation ongoing. So I think that this is the regional countries trying to establish the orders and rules of our own region. So this is a multilateral platform that we can rely on. And the second issue about in the long run, what is our ultimate goal? I think the answer is very clear, is to solve the South China Sea dispute ultimately. And I think finding the resolution is not easy, as Professor Wu and the others said. And China's policy is consistent, very clear. And I think there's a very good sign in the recent years, like legally speaking, the Philippines issued your American Zone Act and also the Archipelagic Sea Lane Act. And from the Chinese side, we announced our baseline of the South Shore last November. So I think that if you look at this issue objectively, I think this legal claims of our both countries become clearer. So this, I think, paves the way for our future resolution of this dispute. And I think that China has been saying that we don't want to solve the problem by force. Peaceful resolution is what we want, and we wanted to solve the issue by peaceful negotiation, directly involve the parties through diplomatic means. This is our commitment, and I think this is a long-run ultimate goal that we are trying to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to share with my perspective on social issue, especially how to manage or how to resolve social disputes peacefully. I would like to thank Senator.
What's the name? What's the name?
Yes. Proposal. What is the cornerstone? What is the foundation to establish social disputes peacefully? I think he highlighted at least the three key words: fact, choose. Fact, choose. One dimension. The second dimension he mentioned is justice. Dispute only is set by that by justify solution, it can induce that kind of solution will be induced. And it is the second one I think he highlights respectability and history. I think that is truly cornerstone for we understanding the essence of substance history. Nowadays we are full of one-sided narrative, propaganda, and fake news. We are living in this kind of how to say this Western information like we living in some kind of information environmental. Only we can clarify what's the truth of society, what's really happening on the ground, and what is the history. Second, I would like to share with you what is the Chinese understanding of international order based on the international law. An international order based on international law is the first and foremost the international order after the Second World War. With the United Nations Charter is total scope. The Chinese government, back to 1946, Chinese government recovered territory illegal occupied by Japan, including island reef in the South China Sea. For example, like Itu Island and Brasco and also Scarborough Shoal. According to Article 2 of Paragraph 4 of the Charter, Chinese territorial integrity shall be respected by all littoral states in South China Sea. However, since 1970s, I think, for example, Philippines occupied these islands in 1971. On one occasion, United Nations Assembly voted which government should have a representative power for Chinese people. And the majority of the vote for the People's Republic of China is the solo legal representative of Chinese people. And at that time, ROC tried to seize some support from the Philippines government. And on that occasion, Philippines seized the Situ Island. So you can see, if you look back at the post-Second World order, I think China's territorial integrity has been undermined to some extent. So, given the rapid growth of Chinese economy, Chinese development, now China has the capability, as Professor Wu mentioned, also have resolved to its territorial integrity. What kind of choice for Chinese government? Should they abandon back to 1949, back to 1970s? They don't want to abandon the territory of China Sea, giving the capacity, giving the strength of the knowledge. I don't think it's a possibility for China to give up its territorial sovereignty of China Sea. So what is important for us to manage the dispute peacefully?
Thank you.
Well, I'm working on international law, so as a lawyer, to answer the questions raised in today's question, I think we made two questions. The first is how to resolve substance. That will be related to the method the parties choose to resolve that, and the law applied to resolve this dispute. And secondly is what can we do to handle a final solution. So let's look at the international law first, how the law addresses these two questions. Firstly, under the UN Charter, every international dispute should be settled peacefully. That means the two parties will seek a peaceful solution to that dispute. Meanwhile, there's another obligation for the parties that do not to escalate the dispute pending the final solution. And under the articles, there's an obligation, mainly not to jeopardize or hamper the final solution and making every effort to have a provisional arrangement before the resolve of the dispute. So this is what law tells us. And secondly, I would to look into the tradition of the ASEAN member states to deal with those international dispute with neighboring states. We will find out that originally there's no tradition to use the microphone to ask anybody else to intervene to deal with the dispute, but they have a tradition here to manage the dispute, prevent the dispute, and manage the crisis. That's what the ASEAN member states usually do in the long history in this region. So I think regionally and bilaterally to manage the crisis, to prevent the future disputes pending the final solution, we have rooted in the regional tradition and the common culture of ASEAN and China. And thirdly, we'll see what other countries do all over the world. We'll notice that there's many territorial and maritime disputes all over the world. Basically, among those 480 maritime boundaries has been established, there are nearly 160 was settled by mutual negotiations and agreements. Only few of them goes to the international tribunals. So I'll take Germany and the Netherlands for example. They go to the North Sea Continental case in the ICJ, but after that case, those countries take nearly 40 years to make agreements on the final delimitation in the North Sea. You see, we still have the chance to have a bilateral negotiation with China to resolve all these difficult disputes and manage those crises. And fourthly, we see that in the history, bilaterally, China and the Philippines has making every effort. To manage the dispute between the two. Every time we see the one-year crisis that we're out of control, but finally those two states sit together to have a bilateral negotiations from the top to the frontier to handle it. So I think that in history, I think the two countries has managed this quite well. Although we have some, the tensions, it's quite normal.